Happy Thursday. We are live. Hi, Veronica. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. It's another Thursday night. Again, I feel like this time just flies.
Yeah, I know. I feel like we just did this yesterday, and like
It,
we're back on today,
I,
and
we
we
are.
just yeah. So I mean, it's funny because sometimes we're like, we already talked about everything. What else do we need to talk about?
Right.
That's why we do the polls a few days before to kind of take the temperature in the room and see if you guys are into the things that we're thinking about talking about. So if you watched the last video, we've gone back to basics and talked about, really like stuff like getting sober. And like now I feel like it's really like natural to go into, the why, right? And I think that that's a really important thing to keep us going. What are your thoughts about the why? Because I know
Yeah.
it's a big topic in recovery.
I mean, it's such a topic that I think a lot of us glance over a lot
Hmm.
because it's just like, okay, we're sober. Like, now what? But if we really pause and take a look at really why did we do this? Why do we keep on doing this? Then we can find a lot of motivation and a lot of different things within ourselves that can keep us going. And so this poll was actually huge. I mean, it got over 700 comments, over, I think, 20, 30 shares. And so I think, keeping it back, taking it back to the basics like this is so important.
Yeah,
And I'm just going to say hi to a couple people.
please do.
Tiffany, hey, how are ya?
Hi,
Dean,
Tiff.
Lawrence is here, 34 years strong. Crescentia is here. John says he just dropped his daughter off at college. That's why he's sober. Jody says sober is more fun. Hey, Debbie. Sean has a new daughter over 2.5 weeks ago.
Congratulations.
Congratulations, the day after his 13th sober birthday. She is
That's
a big
awesome.
supply right now. His mother and stepfather were drunks and addicts when he was growing up. And he wants to be the sober parent he didn't have. Yeah.
I love the whole breaking the cycles vibe, like it's so awesome that while you're sober and in recovery, you have an opportunity to do that, to break the cycle. And this is what I loved going through the responses from the poll. I found it so fascinating that a lot of people had, their different whys, and I thought that was again fascinating because, one person would say this, one person would say that. And, a lot of people, especially parents, thought about their kids and thought about especially younger kids, they felt like, oh, they'll never have to see me this way. And I think kind of like what you were saying, Tori, is like, yeah, the why is like really underrated, but I think it comes in really handy when we're struggling, right? Because then we have to remember like why we took that decision. So I know we also talk about, not doing it for other people. So I think there's something to be said about making the distinction of like, okay, the decision to get sober has to be yours and because of you. But then to keep you going, you have to come up with a couple more whys.
Mhm.
So, I still stand by the whole like, the decision needs to be yours and it needs to be about you, not necessarily your kids. However, to keep going, it may need to be about your kids because if you think about you, you're just going to think about your current needs and what you feel you're not getting with your current lifestyle that you used to get back in active addiction. So then that's when you need to lean on your why. So I just wanted to make that little distinction because even when I was thinking about the topic, I'm like, wait, this is kind of a conflict with, some of the things we say or we've said in the past. So just wanted to put that out there in case anybody was wondering.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with you. And I think that, for a lot of people I know, and including myself, my why is constantly evolving and constantly changing over time. I mean, when I first got sober, why I got sober was because A, I was going to die. B, I was a mess, and as over time, it's because, well, I like this way I'm living. I can hold a steady job,
Yeah.
it constantly is evolving. And I think that, while one person may have a single why, if you will, I think that there's just a lot of reasons that we can put out there.
Yeah.
And there's so many comments coming in. Let me see. Oh, Samantha is here. I think Samantha was here last week. She says the sweats are finally gone. She has made it 12 days. She's definitely not going back now.
Yay.
Let's all give Samantha some support.
No, seriously, I'm so proud of her because that is the worst when you're like sweating, uncomfortable, and you have to show up to your everyday life and you're feeling like crap and like you don't want to get up and you force yourself to like get ready for the day and you're sweating right after you get out of like that is so hard. And you know, if you have a little bit of time, you forget how difficult that was. And you know, we talk about the whole like, oh, you know, like we never want to go back through that again. And I think hearing somebody that's actually going through that, like just keeps it new for us.
Oh yeah.
So I'm so proud of you.
So Veronica, I want to know like what was your why and what was your why? I can't talk right now. What was your why and like what is your why today?
Okay, keeping it real, my why was a DUI.
Okay.
And because it was you know, somewhat of an accident, like, you know, and it doesn't make it any better, but it was like right at the limit, you know, it wasn't anything, you know, too crazy, but it was the first time I had real like law enforcement consequences, and it had been years into me, you know, using, you know, so like for me, it was such a wake up call. And I was always the type of person that felt like if you cannot handle your drugs, if you can't handle your weed, if you can't handle your whatever, you need to stop. Right. Like I was always really harsh to other people.
Yeah.
And so at that point, I forced myself, you know, to kind of like look in the mirror and say like, okay, well, you're that person right now. Cause look at what just happened. And that was like just such a big, cause I've never been in trouble with the law. Yeah. And it took a long time for me to have those kind of consequences. But once they happened, it was a clear, there was just no option. So, you know, that was kind of like divine intervention at the same time, you know, that's how I view it. And that was my why at first, because I needed to obviously, you know, that had its own set of consequences that I needed to be compliant with. Right. So that is what forced me to sort of comply and do what I needed to do. But I remember as I went through that, I just experienced this horrible depression. I felt horrible about the things that I had done. I felt horrible about where I was and like the fact that that was my life. And, you know, I never want to feel that way again.
Right.
So that could be like a long-term why that I will always have with me. You know, and I think like you said, I think whys change through the years and it's an evolving thing, but it's like, now my why is like, why? Like, why would I even? You know, it's more like such a like no-brainer. Like,
right.
why wouldn't I up?
Yeah.
And I'm not gonna lie, there's not days, you know, there aren't easy days, like all easy days all the time. You know, there are days that you're like, okay, well, back in the day, I would have, you know, used this to cope, or I would have, you know, done things differently. So it's not like it's all good and it's all perfect and I don't have my days and I don't think about that, but I have a support network. I know that, you know, what meetings to show up to, whatever, you know, over the years also, like what worked for me has also changed. So
sure,
depending on what I'm going through, I know I have a plan for that, or I have a plan for this, or I have, you know, I have things and people around me that support me and know where I'm at. So I feel like as long as you keep like that bubble around you of like supportive people and just access to resources, whether that's going to a free meeting or therapy or whatever, you can come out on the, you know, you can survive whatever, you know, is coming down your way that's making you feel like you're in trouble or you may drink or use again.
Right.
So long answer to your very short question, but whys are always changing. And yeah, but in a nutshell, it's just like, why even do that to myself? It's just,
well,
yeah.
Some of the comments, Sean says he got sober to heal his soul. I love that.
Me too.
Guerrera, I think that's your name. I got sober because I was so tired of feeling like I was a nobody. My life is amazing now that I'm completely clean and sober. I have a great support team. Yeah, I mean, so many things happen. Sean says, I stay sober for spiritual fitness. Yes.
Love that.
Augustine is here.
Hi, Augustine.
He says this is his favorite part of the week. Us too.
We love you.
We love you, Augustine. Aubrey is 22 years sober. Does not matter to her. I'd rather have quality of sobriety, not quantity of sobriety. Me too. Crescentia says, I get to make choices with a clear mind. I am able to help others. Love my life. Grateful. Yeah, I mean, I just love reading all these
Me
because
too.
there's just it's just so inspiring because everybody comes from different places.
And my hope too is that newcomers or people who are struggling can take a look at this thread, can look at the comments, can look at the poll that we did yesterday, and can go through that and see that, like, okay, yeah, it's other people commenting on that, but that's you, you know, and just like the bad stuff, like how we say, like, there by the grace of God goes I, that goes towards a positive too, that can also be you. You know, so like that's not, you know, nobody that's like telling like all these their experiences is any different than the other. You know, they just like did things that changed their life. They changed their behavior. They changed this. They changed that. And so like that's not beyond anybody else's reach. So I don't want, because I know like, again, like in early recovery, I could have read this thread and been like, oh, okay, that's cool that that's happening to you. And that's cool that now you're like all spiritual and that you no longer need that. But that's not me. So it doesn't apply. So I'm going to tune all this out. And it's like, don't tune it out, because that could really be you. And you could relate to people that have done it, that have felt exactly how you feel today.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, I totally agree with you. And a comment I want to read. Karen says she got sober because of her health, and she stays sober because of fear. I am a teacher's aide and a bus driver. I'm afraid to be a parent. How do you feel about that one? Because I know like a lot of people, you know, I think fear can drive us to get sober. Like I was afraid to die. I was afraid of my health. I was afraid of my family disowning me. But I think over time, like you got to let that fear kind of go.
Yes and no. So for her, and the reason why I like made that sound was because I loved how aware she was that it wasn't just her that she would be affecting should something happen. Like she's responsible for the people who she drives, you know, in that bus. And I just love the fact that like fear can be unhealthy, but I think there's a healthy fear. And I think that's a healthy fear because you're not thinking just of yourself. You're not being self-centered. You're thinking of how you impact others around you and how your actions can impact others. So I love that. I love that she's not making it about her and that she's not making it about, you know, like if I'm out, you know, with my friends and not all my friends are in recovery and they have drinks or whatever, and I may be driving or whatever, I think about drinking and driving and I let others know, like, don't drink and drive. And not because of them necessarily. It's like, not that I don't trust you, but it's like, you don't know how other people may be driving. You don't know how you're going to react. And so I think that when it comes to hurting other people, I think that having that fear is a healthy fear.
Right.
And it helps you get out of yourself and just like what you need, you know, how you're feeling and how bummy you're feeling, how you need to get rid of those feelings, and helps you think of others. And that's kind of like what we do with service work. So I think that if the fear is about like, I don't want to get a DUI because nearly, you know, not only am I going to suffer consequences, but also I can hurt someone, you know, I could destroy somebody's family, worst came to worst, which I don't wish that on anybody. Like, I don't know, you know, like how you survive that, you know, knowing that, but like, it can get really bad, you know, one little choice. And that's the thing, that when we make those decisions, it's not just us, you know, and I think there was another post, I think it was a post from this morning about Colin Farrell, how he talked about his mom, you know, finally getting rest after rehab. And there were a few comments on that post talking about, you know, one gentleman said, like, one of the things that I hate the most about, you know, my alcoholism was the fact how it affected my wife and my mom. And that's the thing that we have to remember when it comes to using, and our whys is because it's not just us. This is a you know, a team sport. Everybody gets involved, whether or not you want that. You know, you can isolate as much as you want, but even that isolation is going to affect other people, other areas of your life. So I think that's a healthy fear when you're thinking of others.
No, I agree with you. You know, but I also think too that, like, you know, if fear is the one thing that gets us sober, it's not gonna, there has to be something else.
No, I don't think fear should get us sober. I think what should get us sober is a decision that we want a better life.
Right. But okay. So I think that, like, no matter what gets us sober, that's great.
Yeah. Okay.
But like, if we continue to live in that fear. And obviously, like I agree with you. Like you said, the healthy fear is great. And I think that is good because I still have some of those healthy fears. But like if we continue to live in that perpetual state of fear, then that's going to drive us back.
Yeah, I think that like, anything that starts to affect your life in a negative way is something that you need to look at. So anything that you're doing, whether it's fear, whether it's whatever, if you feel like it's preventing you from showing up to daily tasks or, to coping in a healthy way to certain, things that come up through the day, then yeah, you need to look at that. Like that fear can't prevent you from doing certain things, but just like a healthy enough fear that will keep you from making a certain decision, but not enough where like you're not going to leave the house anymore because you're afraid to come into people, into contact with people. Right. Yeah. Exactly.
Well, Bob is new. He has 24 days. He is scared about what life has in store for him. Bob, just put your seatbelt on and get ready.
Don't freak him out even more. That sounds like a scary, like, carnival ride. Okay. Well, first of all, Bob.
Okay, we're so glad you're here, first of all. But, like, I mean, like, it's a good ride, okay?
Yeah, no, seriously. It really is. Welcome, 24 days. Whew, the first 30 days are really hard. So, again, we're so glad you're here.
Yeah.
What?
I said he's almost there. He's almost at day 30, God willing,
For sure. Like, stay the course. And, yeah, I mean, don't be afraid of what life has in store unless you have like some consequences, like legal consequences and court cases and things that are coming up like that. I understand. But as far as like life is going to open up for you in a way you did not expect. Mm-hmm. Right. So like if you get out of your own way and let that happen and follow the suggestions of people who understand your journey and who are your supports in recovery, you're going to like come back here, in another Thursday and report back like how amazing your life has gotten. And I can't wait for that day. So just hang in there and just know we're here for you.
So we better see you next week. That's all I'm saying. Okay. Let's see. Tina is 13 months sober. And there's a lot of people in the comments that now are talking about emotional sobriety. Emotional hangovers can be rough. Someone's working on their emotional sobriety. Bex struggles with. She has 3 years sober. I mean, we have done lives and videos on emotional sobriety too. So if that is something you're struggling with, go back and watch that video.
Maybe we need to bring that one back because I think it's very like relevant right now. And maybe we need to do like next week could be about that. Just let us know like which specific part of like emotional sobriety and like we can do something about that. Like that's just, maybe refreshed and kind of
updated. It's like, probably about 6 months since we've talked about that, I think.
Yeah. So, yeah. But the good news too is that I was just having a conversation with a friend of mine, a local friend of mine, and he was saying that AA, that local AA chapter is going to have a new emotional sobriety meetings. So the good news is that there's even, you have to check out what's available in your local area, or if you're involved in one of the 12-step fellowships, like maybe suggest, an emotional sobriety meeting. Maybe you can, like, that can be your thing if that's something you'd want to create. I'm sure there are resources and there are books and things like that can.
Well, we also have an emotional sobriety course too. It talks about emotional regulation, distress tolerance, different things like that on sobrietyengine.com. So if you want some more support around emotional sobriety, definitely go there. And there's so many things out there, first of all.
Yeah, that's a great course. And that's one of the ones you wrote, right?
I wrote that course, yeah.
Okay. And just so like everybody's clear, you are a counselor. So you have like...
an alcohol counselor, yes,
Okay. So like you know what you're talking about. So it's not like this person who's just in recovery who like decided to put together this course. Like, no, you've done your due diligence and you put together a course about that. And I think that's definitely worth checking out. Like you may not want to start as an emotional sobriety meeting. Maybe you want to do something more low key at your own pace at home when you get home from work and, have access to like the instant, resources. So in that case, we do recommend sobrietyengine.com for you. Check it out. You can go at it at your own pace, and there's like additional support, and it's kind of like a step up from the support that we can provide. So check it out.
Yeah. Let me see here. Jeff says, hey, why is a great question, coming up on 4 years. Congratulations. He sees everything he has gained with family, relationship, friends, and the biggest part is once you learn how to have fun in sobriety, it makes it easier not to even think about going back to the old life. Love being sober. Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah, 100%.
We're just jumping around here, but I love it.
Yeah, I feel like this is a jump around topic, because it's like whys are so different for everybody else. I love not having like a structured, format to follow, and just kind of like, real time reacting to what people are saying, how the conversation is flowing,
Nice like this. I like it.
I do too. Takes a lot of the pressure off.
Yeah, right. Let's see.
I'm gonna look in the poll and see if there's
go to the poll, because we're just like hanging out here in the comments. But
here's a cool one. So Megan says, I have been homeless, broke, and I never want to be that person again. 7 years clean and sober. I have my life and my family back. Okay, can we talk about like not having anything and having to rebuild our lives from scratch, like having to find housing and having to get jobs and having nothing, to today having a roof over our head, having jobs. I realize that's not the case for everyone, but a lot of people are now in a better situation than they were when they first came in. So that's a great why, maintaining your current, all the things that you've gained while you've been sober, and taking it back and thinking about like, wow, like I just remember the days where I was, homeless. I was homeless for other reasons, not for substance use, because it was like really early, like in my career. And I have moved to New York from Florida. And I remember it was the classical, like turned 18, moved to New York. And yeah. And I lived in Florida. I went to high school in Florida. Yeah. And I was just like, whatever's going to happen for me, it's not going to happen in Florida. So I need to go to New York, like the epicenter of everything.
Right.
And I decided to go there. And like the first year, anybody else would have went home. But I just remember, like walking on the street and like crying and being like, I will never go back to Florida empty-handed. Like I refuse to. And I remember that I was like sleeping in hallways. Like there were like rats all over the place. Like nothing you could even like imagine. And then eventually, like little by little, I started to crawl myself out of that hole, and I ended up getting like an internship at a record company and ended up working my butt off and became, had a career and made a career and lived an amazing life. But you have to think about those times where you had nothing, where you were sleeping on a couch in a hallway. Like it was like a love seat where like my legs would like hang out, but I didn't have anywhere else to sleep. So I was just like grateful for that. But it's just like, that's where I came from. That's part of my story. And it's like, again, it wasn't related to substance use, but it's a part. I never want to go back to that. I never, I know what it feels like. And it's even become, I'm not going to say an emotional trigger, but I know in times where I've been looking for other apartments or, kind of like just considering my living situation, it comes up for me. Like I get triggered by that because I'm like, I will never be homeless again, because that's something I promised myself years ago, and not that I would end up homeless, but it's just like, I can't put my living situation in somebody else's hand because that's something I vowed to do a long time ago.
Right. No.
So even though like we moved past those experiences and we've improved, it's interesting how they've shaped us into becoming who we are now and the things we will allow and won't allow. So that's one of the things that I feel like are big whys too,
I mean, I can think of so many times that I have felt like, okay, here I am down and out, and I never want to, fucking feel this way ever again. And how that kind of like catapulted me to take action and like do something different and kind of allow this belief system in my life to take ownership of my own life and my own, housing, whatever, finances, whatever, and not want to live that way again.
Yeah. And for those of you who are, newly sober or who are thinking about getting sober, and you are where we were back then, where you were like, I have nothing, I never want to feel this way again. Hello, Like, it happens. Like, this isn't, people making up stuff. Like, these are like our real life experiences. And even people in the comments are sharing their experiences. And it's like, you bounce back from it. And you can't believe that was even your life at one point. Like, that's how far removed you become from it. So again, if you hang in there and you do what you have to do and you do the hard work, it happens. So hang in there.
I think for me, like, feeling, because even when I was using, like, I still had some things, but when I got sober, I had nothing, like, I bare bones, walking to a job and riding a bicycle and just feeling that way, like, as a sober person, like, not wanting to feel that way ever again.
Yeah, no, it's so important. And we tend to forget it and we get, complacent. And, that's why, like, something, and we make gratitude lists, but those are things that are so buried within us that, like, sometimes don't come up as like a obvious to put down in our gratitude list. Like, oh, I have a home today, like,
Yeah.
And so those are things that definitely, make us stay in the game.
Greg is here. He says staying sober to raise a grandson who is 3 now, raising him with his wife. We're both the grandparents who have custody. That's good for you. I mean, that's I can't imagine that. It's got to be hard. Marissa's here from Michigan. Hello, we're glad you're here. Aaliyah has 17 months. Congratulations. She says she stays sober because she loves the person she's become. A lot of people stay sober because of, their kids. I think that's amazing, first of all.
Yeah, it's important.
Let's see. Jennifer stays sober because she says that shit'll kill her. Unfortunately, she had to test the theory 5 years ago. 5 years in. And yep, the little monster was still inside of her, just waiting. Been sober 10 years now.
Yep, that's real too. I mean, and that's a big why, because it never goes away. You're never like cured. So,
yeah. What does anything else jump out at you in the
looking through the poll now?
I'm gonna look too. Let's see. Jackie says, when I drank the next day, my soul felt dead. That's rough. Yeah, I felt that way before.
Amanda says, fear of losing everything I've worked so hard to achieve and everyone I love who have stood by me unconditionally. New life comes first now and always will. So yeah, I mean, that fear of losing everything is real, because if you relapse, like, and I don't know how many times you guys have heard this, but I know I've heard this a lot, is like, if you relapse, like, what took you years to lose, and before you got sober or clean, you will lose once you relapse, like, in 2 weeks. Like, right. It's so crazy how quickly in a relapse you will lose everything you have worked for, where again, it may have taken almost half your life for you to lose everything to get help in the first place. Right. So I think that's a healthy fear too, of like sort of not wanting to lose everything you've gained in recovery.
I agree. I mean, that's definitely a healthy fear. I know if I relapsed, I would lose everything, Well, do you think we've like exhausted this topic? I feel like we've like definitely like beat the dead horse. I don't know. What do you think?
I mean, I feel like we can continue talking about it because there's so many different whys, but I think overall the message was sort of laid out that, everybody's why is different, and that no matter what, you just have to keep going and remember that why, and remember how things were even when you're having bad days, and that if you're new or considering, recovery or sobriety, that, people have been where you are and you have access to talk to those people. You have access to community and to support, and even to resources at sobrietyengine.com for like, emotional sobriety, for example.
Right.
There's just, you now have a community that supports you and wants you to do well. So I hope this was helpful for you guys. As always, if there are other topics you want us to discuss, let us know in the comments. Send us your sober since pictures. We love posting those on a daily basis. If you want to write for Sober Nation, they should email Tori, Tori@sobernation.com. That is her pointing at her head. And I think that's it.
Veronica, you just like said my spiel, you know?
I figured I'd make it easier for you this evening.
Thank you.
Service work.
Oh, you're so sweet.
All right, everyone. Well, I hope you guys have a nice evening. And yeah, if you
next week.
Yeah, and feel free to keep talking in the comments and supporting one another. We love that.
Yeah, and if you're watching the replay, we're glad you're here. We're glad you
totally.
are watching this. So keep, continuing the conversation, and we will see you guys again here next week, 9 p.m. Eastern time on Thursday. Yeah.
Bye, guys. Have a good night.